Now we're ready to deal the cards. And there's something kind of interesting about the way that works. When the player starts the game, before they even really get to see anything on the game in play page, we have to deal out 2 cards for the dealer and 2 cards for the player. That's a function of our application. The application needs to do that. Now, if we wanted to get very complex and make it feel more like a real-time game, we could do a lot of fancy graphics on the player's end. We could have it set up so that the player sees the blank table, and then the player sees cards being turned over and tossed and moved and so on. All of that is very nice, but that's a little bit beyond what we're going to do with a simple PHP application. So we're actually dealing out the cards. When the player sees the web page after they've started the game, but before they've actually done anything, they'll see a completely dealt hand for the dealer and for the player. The first card for the dealer is going to be down, the second card is going to be up, and that's just like normal blackjack. Both of the player's cards are going to be up because the player has to see them, and it's an application. I mean, the idea that anybody else could see those cards is not really relevant in the way that we're playing this. So both of the player's cards are up, and let's scroll down just a little bit and we'll walk through the code of how the cards are dealt. First of all of this happens, as it says down here, on the game homepage, and it happens when the game is first started. The player hasn't had a chance to actually choose anything or do anything. The cards are just dealt. So, as it says here, we're dealing the initial hand. We start with the player, and notice that we have another array here, array player hand images, and that is set equal to the value of the array card images. And remember, that's that array of 60 card images we created. And it's also going to be looking at the array card sequence. Now remember, the number here is going to be a random number, whatever that number might be. And the number here is going to be the next card to deal. So for array card sequence index 0, that could be any card. The next card to deal will say the first value in next card to deal, of course, we've already set that to 0 for this first card being dealt. So the 0 index on array card sequence might be equivalent to 36, which is, maybe plastic number 9. So this number right here is 0 of 36 here. So now we have 36 here. And so it picks out array card images number 36, which might be plastic number 9, as I mentioned. And that card images / plastic number 9.gif becomes the value held in this 0 index, the first card dealt to the player. I know that might seem just a little bit confusing to start with, but it actually works very well in practice, as you'll see. Think about it just for a little bit and see if you can't walk through the process by which this entire expression is evaluated and comes up with a random card, the next card from the deck that was shuffled, the next card that was to be dealt, for the first card in the player's hand. Now, this next line looks very similar. What are we using this for? Well, array player hand is actually the values for these images. And as you recall, a 1 is worth 11, 2 is worth 2, 3 is worth 3, X, Y, and Z are worth 10 each. So what we're doing here is we're keeping one array for the image values and another array for the actual numeric value that will be used to calculate the score. We're using exactly the same method of getting to that value. So array card sequence is still the same. Next card to deal is still the same. So we're getting the exact value for that exact image. And the last part of this is simply adding 1, or incrementing next card to deal by 1. So you can't forget to do that, otherwise you're going to deal the exact same card, and that would not be good. Okay, we do the same process for the dealer card. And as I was testing this, I was using that to set the next image so that I could see what was being dealt to the dealer. After I got done and felt that the application was working properly, I just commented out this line and inserted another line so that the first card for the dealer would end up just being this card image that represents the back of the card. And as you can see here, we're picking up the value for the card that was dealt to the dealer, and then we're picking up the increment of 1 for the next card to deal. Now you might be wondering, how do we find out what this value was later? Well, we're doing it the simple, quick, easy, cheap way. We know which card this is. We know that it was a value of 1 for next card to deal. So we just substitute a 1 in here later on. Now if we had lots of cards going up and down and that kind of thing, we would have to keep track of that and just simply use another variable or value somewhere to keep track of whether the card was up or down. As it is, since there's only one card down that we ever deal, it's always the same number. It's next card to deal equals 1. We don't have to sweat it. We don't have to think about it. We just hard code in a 1 and we're there. And again, for our simple application, that works just fine. Works every time. Okay, now we've got the initial hand dealt. Time to move on.